Domain 4, as we've been working on this week. So the first one they talk about here is inserting is the best used for adding a clip in between two others, but doing so moves everything else in the timeline over. Alright, so when they're talking about that in Premiere, if we wanted to put a clip like right here, instead of moving everything over, we could go to our project panel or our source view, and you have this option here, which would be insert. Come on. Should be inserting that clip. I don't know why that's not working there. That's let's see if any of these others work. Love it when this stuff doesn't work. Let's see if I just go like this. Alright, nothing's working, it seems like. So, oh, there we go. Let's try this again. So I'm in my source window, and if I do an insert, still not working, not overwriting. Excellent. Well, that's what it should be doing, is inserting that into there. I think you can also go to one of your pull downs, and thought you could do an insert in there also. Alright, but that is what should be happening there. We always know that Premiere kind of does its own thing, it seems like sometimes. Number 2, overwriting is a good tool for adding B-roll to replace part of an existing clip you would otherwise rather not use. So we talk about rough cuts, and that would be this other button here. So instead of just inserting it, we can do an overwrite, and that should have been moving that over there. We'll just try another clip. Yeah, nothing seems to be working there. That's interesting. You know, I'm going to restart this, and maybe we'll have better luck on the restart. Number 3, inserts and overwrites are examples of additive. Alright, I know that's something that's on the test. They talk about additive types of editing, meaning you're changing a timeline through adding it to it, as opposed to subtractive, which we would do in the program window. Alright, I'm going to give this one more try here. And let's see, is this the one I want? Yeah, I know my fonts are better. So if I open this here, and now if I do an insert, there it went. Alright, so that would insert it at that point in the clip, as opposed to if I do my overwrite, now it places it directly over it. Alright, so that was page 1 of lesson 1. Page 2, they're talking about rough cuts are cuts only edits with no transition between clips. A rough cut is the process of assembling blocks of video together. The video clips are added to a timeline and assembled into a sequence. Tools used to make cuts only edits are the in and out points, razor tool, and assembly cut. So they're saying anytime you don't have a transition, it's just a rough cut. So if I went from here, from this clip of Austin back to me, that would be kind of a rough cut. Or if you use the razor tool to split a clip, that would be creating a rough cut there also. Alright, so that's what they're talking about, rough cuts. And then they have you, I mean, we should probably be talking about these exercises a little bit. You're opening a project, and they're marking an endpoint and an outpoint. So what tool do we use to add an endpoint or an outpoint? Anybody remember? Not the markers. So these little squiggly lines here would make it so if we wanted to, as I have here on this clip, hide this first part of it, I move my playhead to that point in time, and I press this little squiggly bracket. So it's going to hide everything there when I drag it to the timeline. Alright, same thing with the out point. So if I wanted to hide stuff at the end, I can move my playhead to the end, press the other squiggly bracket, and it would hide all that when I bring it to the timeline. You can also, in exporting, so you have that on your source view, but also in your program view, if you only wanted to render a certain portion of your video, you can put an in point on your timeline, and then an out point, And then when we go to export, you have your sequence in or out. So it's only going to export that segment of the video that is established by those markers there. All right, so that's something that's useful for that. And that's what they're doing here. So add the clip to the timeline. Use the razor tool and cut the shot. Opening the project. So there's some moving stuff around in that way. All right, so those are our rough cuts. All right, inserting, overwriting, lifting, and extracting. So the insert option, as we just talked about, is used to insert a clip or a portion of a clip into the timeline, and if necessary, move the remaining portion of the timeline further out from the timing standpoint. To use it, the clip needs to be in the source monitor, which we just looked before, where the insert button is located. The overwrite option is used to replace part of the existing clip where the playhead is located. The lift option deletes the selection of the video and leaves an empty space. So the lift option requires an in and out point to be selected on the timeline. The in and out buttons points are found in the program monitor along with the lift button. So they're saying here, we took this portion here and we wanted to remove all this. We can do a lift. All right, so it removes all that's there. So it takes it from all layers. Actually, I guess you have to select all the layers also. So if we have all these selected, and then we do a lift. I didn't take Austin's video out. Oh, maybe because I don't have this source patch on, all right, over here on the side. That's probably why. There we go. So you can like kind of cut and remove a whole range at that same time. Or if we extract, then it kind of does a ripple delete. So the lift will leave a gap, as we see here, and then you could put something else in its place. Or if we do extract, it's going to do it for us. All right, so depending on the complexity of your layers, that lift and extract would be useful for that. All right, and then so our answers here, additive options. Anybody remember source or program monitor? You have two choices. Additive. Think, where was the insert and the overwrite option? All right, it's over here on the left. What's this called? Which is the source or program? On the left. Source. Thank you, Blaze. All right, so additive is in the source, and subtractive, like the lift and extract, that's in the program view. All right, so if you didn't get those two, that's what's happening there. All right, moving on. Multi-camera sequence. All right, this is something that we're going to do kind of as like our last video project, and I did kind of allude to that in the objectives today, which I didn't really go over too much, but we're going to do a multi-camera sequence, which basically just means you're shooting the same scene but with two cameras rolling at the same time. Why would you want to do that, having film with two cameras at once? Tyler? Exactly, right? Now, for editing purposes, how would you edit that together, like from what we know right now? Blaze?
You would put each clip on the timeline lined up together from start to finish, and then just make your edits.
Yeah, you'd have to go in and razor stuff out and move layers around. It's a tedious process, but we're going to see that, and next week, I thought would be kind of fun. We are going to play Minute to Win It. We're going to try to think of some games to do with that. Anybody ever see that TV show or remember that? They had on for a little while. So it was a game show, and people had to complete like random tasks like in a minute to advance on the different rounds. So, remember that? So it was called Minute to Win It. So I'd like you all to think about, maybe if you go on YouTube and see some of the past episodes, and think about some of the little games that we could play. and we're just going to film them from multiple cameras, and then we'll edit it together. All right, so I know like the cup stacking challenge was kind of like one that I remember. Probably like an egg type of carry or something like that. All these different ones. But I'd like you all to try to think of one of those activities that we could do, and then try to bring in whatever materials we would need to do that for next week. All right, but that's what we're going to do with the multi-camera. All right, so that's what they're talking about here. We'll go through that activity next week. All right, so that was lesson 1. No, I do not want to save that. Now, the activities for that, or the exercise lab. Oh, is there no exercise lab for lesson 1? I guess there isn't. Oh, no, I'm in the wrong domain. That's why. So, core editing tools. We have the exercise labs for here. I think it said there's 4 tasks. All right, it says for the source clip, for the clip in the source monitor, mark an in point at 4:03 and an out at 7 minutes, then add it to the timeline. All right, so how do we designate an in point at 4:03? Tyler? Right, so they already have, our time code is already indicating 4:03, so we just mark an input, and then, Megan, how can we get to 7 seconds exactly on our timeline? But, all right, so the speed, that would be adjusting the speed and the duration of the clip. But we just want to get to 7 seconds on this timeline. So, all right, so this is a little bit controlling. What I was hoping you'd say was click on the time code and enter it into there, right? But on the activity, they kind of make it slide out to that point, and then we would just add our out point. All right, and then it says put it to the timeline. Kaylee, how do we add a clip to the timeline? Just drag it over, right? So we do something like that. Where do they want it to be in here? The test is not as restrictive as this, where there's only like one way to do it. Oh, so actually, oh yeah, they have it at 22:05. I'm at that point in my timeline. Come on. All right, well it should drag over there. Let me see if I have to like reset this. All right, so we want this to be at 4:03, our in. We drag this over. Yeah. 7 out. Drag this over. All right, I'm going ahead. That's what it should be. Yeah, I know. All right, delete the shot 8 clip between the 101 second mark and the 102 second mark, and leave the space empty. All right, so we can see this a little better. Hopefully nobody's going to go to sleep now, but Lauren, if they're saying to, where'd my direction go? Here they are. Delete the shop clip between 101 and 102. So what would we do first to get to that point? Just going to drag. So we have to set an in point, and then we have to drag. We should be dragging this to the second point. Come on. It says there's a mark on the timeline. I don't see another mark. Let's see if we just, come on. Yeah, I was trying to. Mine is not dragging. See if I reset this one more time. All right, so I guess you have to click on the timeline. You have to kind of know where it is. Set our in point, then go to 102, set our out point, and do you remember which tool would delete it with leaving an empty space? Is it the lift or extract? Lauren, do you remember from what we were just talking about? I think it's lift. Extract removes the gap, lift leaves it empty. All right. All right, so we got that one right. Number 3. Let's see. Nick, what are you working on? Are you on lesson 4 or are you going with us? Okay. All right, let's go online actually. So, who's working with us online? Probably shouldn't be asking that. You guys should be watching. Jenna, are you can you hear me? And are you seeing my screen?
I can't see your screen, but I was listening. Okay.
All right. So actually, you know what? This one I'm just going to demonstrate. Maybe I'll come back to you. It says create a multi-camera sequence, accept all defaults. So please.
I was going to say, if you want to do it, trigger.
Yeah, talk me through it. What do we do?
So you're going to right click the stuff in the media tab. You're going to scroll to create multi-camera source sequence.
Yep.
And then you just accept the default settings and then it's done.
That's it. All right. And the way that plays out is if this was actually our project, because we're not gonna be able to see it from here. See if I have 3 clips I can use here, or even 2. So if I have Austin, I think I had Tyler's interview on here. So if I right click it and say create multi-camera sequence, we can say use those default inputs, and then it should make a new sequence here. All right, so right away it's got our 2 videos like next to each other. All right, and then if I say make new sequence from clip, I believe, and then we just turn on our multi-camera viewer. So now when we're watching this, we can go in here and we can just switch back and forth between our clips. Then if I press stop and I turn off that viewer, and now I go back, it's taking or doing a rough cut in between those different camera sources. So that's basically how easy it is to do a multi-camera sequence. I know I did that quickly and probably made it'll be a little more challenging kind of to go through the order, but that's something we're going to be doing next week. All right, so that was lesson 1. Lesson 2. This one is talking about typography and stuff, I guess. Oh, I got to go back to the first page. So, kerning is the distance between 2. Good job, Megan. All right. The easiest way to adjust roll and crawl speed is to adjust to control the keyframes. Good. If you are going to use a cell phone to shoot video with the intention of using that video elsewhere, always have the camera turned. All right, we're going to have to give some other people some chances here. Thank you for your excellent answers. Jenna, let's go back to you there. Number 4, rolling edits keyboard shortcut is, I don't know if you got to this assignment here. Probably. It is N. Thank you. All right. And the ripple edit keyboard shortcut we'll say is B. Number 5, we talked about an L cut previously, but this time they're talking about a J cut, which occurs when a clip is edited to where its audio starts to play before the video portion. So it's kind of reverse of the L cut that we had talked about in the past. Placing images in video. When placing a video, when a video clip is dragged into the timeline, it is not resized or scaled. Videos are resized or scaled by clicking on the edit menu and clicking preference option. Once the preferences are set, other videos added have the same preferences applied. Alright, so that's actually something interesting. What have we done in the past to make a video fit to the timeline? Anybody remember? I haven't done anything with the ripple, but not so that, like, if you brought in your video and like it was really zoomed in and we wanted to kind of zoom out on the scale, right? Usually we would go in here. So if I dragged in a video and we found, or a picture for that matter, and like this, it's too big. So normally we would go in here and we would right click it and say scale to frame size. So let's see what they're saying here. Okay, so if we go to the preferences, which preference would that be? So if we go to edit, preferences, and graphics, maybe? They tell you it's in preferences, but I don't think they tell you what happens after that. There's got to be a setting in here, I guess, to scale it. I thought it would have been under graphics or something, or maybe appearance. No. Did it give us any more? I don't know. So there's got to be, I would have to look in to see which preference that is. There's got to be something in there that I guess scales it when it brings it in. I don't remember that being on the test, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. Another thing that I think we did with our synchronized slideshow is that we automated it to the sequence. So instead of dragging each one individually, you can come into, if you made a folder, you could select them, and there's this button down here that says automate to sequence. Alright, and that's going to just bring them in order. It will apply default transitions. So if you have a lot of clips like we had with the synchronized slideshow, that automating to sequence is pretty useful, so that you can just bring them all in and not have to apply transitions afterwards. Alright, so a frame duration is the number 1 divided by the number of, I think that was frames per second, right? Or, let's see if I have that one, if I remember right. Yep. And this one was kind of, I think, on the document, hard to fill in because the second line then changes to that. So when the current sequence, what is the current sequence's frame duration? So I guess that was from the video, and you had to put in there 29.97, and that goes to both lines. That was my workaround for that. So I just was saying put in both the answers there. Alright, so that was just from that activity that they did there. Superimpose text. Text is added to clips in multiple ways. Most of the text tools are found in the toolbar between the project panel and the timeline. The Type on a Path tool is found by clicking the File menu, New, and selecting Legacy Title tool from the menu. What is Type on Path? What are they talking about there? Jade, what are they talking about with Type on Path? Alright, we don't have Jade. Jenna, do you remember what Type on Path is? Brandon, do you remember?
I think type on path is basically typing on a shape or form, pretty much, or in a line.
Yes. Alright, so a curve or a circle. Alright, we could do stuff with that. So I guess if we go in here, we made like a circle, and then here's our type on path. I've actually didn't even know this was in here, that you could do that. I probably would have just done it in Illustrator and brought it in as a PNG. But you have this other title editor. It's called this legacy editor. So what they said was go to File, New, and then go to Legacy Title. And then you get a whole new pop-up window that has some older type tools to them. Alright, so that's kind of specific, obviously, but it is interesting that you can do that. This tool is not often used, as the text tool found on the toolbar are the text tools most commonly used. Alright, so yeah, and they're saying text can also be created as graphics, as I was just saying, and then brought into here. Character settings. Alright, so I think we talked about this on like the first one. Page Boyd, what's kerning? Did you get this one?
I forget that one.
I always get these confused too. I don't know if there's probably an easier way to remember. Destiny, you want to guess what kerning is? Kerning? Yeah, Mr. E would not be happy with us. Distance between letters. Alright, and I'm guessing that you guys probably don't remember, as I don't a lot of times either. Tracking is the distance between letters within selected text. So it's kind of the same, but then, you know, this one, I guess it's not selected text. All right, and then you have leading, which is the distance between each line. So if you have multiple lines of type, that would assign that. These are just one of these things where I think you just have to kind of, you know, maybe using some flashcards or something, which you can do. And I think I will have Mrs. Infranco come in. She has like a, did we do the matching game, or did you guys ever do the matching game with Mrs. Infranco? It's kind of splits you in teams, and yeah, probably, yeah. I'll probably have her come in before our test and, you know, talk about some of these terms to try to refresh your memory on them. All right, because I know that we don't use these terms very often, but it is something as graphic designers we should be familiar with. I mean, really just thinking, you know, you go into your type or your character styling. Let's see if I have a text item. Yeah, I gotta have one in here, right? At least some kind of title. My graphic didn't show up, that's right. But if we go to our graphics tab, and actually we just make a text box, right? Let's see if I can type here. There we go. So when you hover over, like I always just use the, you know, the tool tips or the pop-ups. So this will say tracking, right? So we can see that that is going to be that. Actually, so let's see here. If we do type styles, all right, and we have, I just select it this way. We talked about the first one was leading, right? Or kerning. So if we go down to even, yeah, here's kerning, but that is not adjusting. I guess we have to have the type selected. I'm not going to spend time on this. This is frustrating me. All right, let's move on. I don't want to kill time obsessing over that. Paragraph styles. We all know from that also, you know, with our toolbar over here, our type tool, that we can get all of our options for that, which this should highlight. There we go. Now we have all our paragraph styling, right? And there's all our settings that we were talking about. So you do get a full range of type editors in Premiere. Animating, we did talk about doing our rolling credits. So this is something that and there used to be a little box that would say crawl also. We remember to roll credit or a title, we would just select our text item and we would just select roll here. So that would make that text go up and down the screen. All right. Now there used to be a button also that would say crawl, but it's not there anymore. I don't think they really tell you here how to do that. But we should know that crawling is moving horizontally, right? And that rolling is moving vertically. We're animating text left to right. And this is animating top to bottom. All right, so that was that one. Resizing clips, film shot in widescreen or in one aspect ratio is added to Premiere. Sequence with different aspect ratios need to be resized to prevent letterboxing. So that's that concept of like the black space or the black bars as they're saying here. All right, 2 ways to resize a clip are to set the frame size option or to scale the frame. That's what we usually do. Set the frame size option sets the clip to the size of the frame without adjusting the image. Scale the frame size resamples the actual image to the size of the frame and can distort the image if the resize is substantial. So we know we do that by right-clicking the clip and then choosing that option. All right, modifying tools. So there's different ways to insert or delete parts of a timeline when editing, while others overlap what is in a timeline. So let's see here. The first one is the slide tool is number 4. All right, so that's what we usually just call, actually I'm sorry, it's this one. I'm thinking it's the selection tool they have. So if we go into Premiere and we find that, and you know, on your toolbar you might not see that immediately, so you do have to press and hold, but we could slide this over. No, I don't use this tool very often. It adjusts the clip without affecting the overall timeline, but the clip before and after will be affected. All right, so actually let's see if we move this, or maybe if I take this one and we move it over here, so it kind of moved that clip afterwards, or your gap on there. The selection tool, what number is that? We should all know what that one is. 3, good. Rolling edit tool, adjusts the length of each clip but the timeline stays the same. Anybody know what number that one is? Not 3, 1. All right, so that's this one. So again, it adjusts the length of each clip, but the timeline stays the same. So if we went into, where is it? I don't know if I have in and out points on, if that's messing me up. So I can shorten it. I don't know a real practical purpose of this. You know, the saying goes, you use 20 or 30% of the tools 90% of the time. This is not one that we're using a lot. The slip tool adjusts which portion of the clip is used without affecting. So anybody remember what that one was? If you answered? 4, 3, 1. Actually, it's 5. All right, this is our slip tool. Ripple edit we did talk about with our as an option for our synchronized slideshow. That is number 2. So this one here. And remember, so that removes the gap, right? If we use that ripple edit tool, I think that one is relatively useful. I just have to remember where they are, right? So with this one, if we click on here and adjust that, it closes the gap. All right, so we don't have that space in between there. Which tool icon is the slip tool and or which tool icon has the slip tool and the slide tool? They have 5, which we said was the slip tool. So I think they're saying the slip and the slide is in the kind of the same one. So let's, yes, like, because if you press and hold the slip, you have the slide as well. Anybody big fans of the slip and slide in their backyards? That's what came to my mind. Sometimes dangerous, depending on how your grass was, but that's what made it fun too. All right, the last one, which tool icon has the ripple edit, rolling edit, and the rate stretch? That is 2 actually. Remember, the number comes before it. So it's this one has all those combined in there. All right, so that was lesson 2, right? There was a lot of stuff in there. And that was a good amount of review. Couple of kind of new types of things in there that we haven't discussed, but at least now you're aware of what they are. Lesson 3, there was no fill-in, but I do want to just kind of go over the topics in there. Let's see. Which is my complete one? That's this one. Alright, so we're on domain 4. And that's 2, 3, 4. And we're going to go to lesson 2. Or no, 3. So we should be starting on modify clip settings, paragraph, animate titles, resize, modify clips settings. We did types of cuts. I guess this, here we go. Clip modifying settings are found by right-clicking the desired clip located in the project panel and choosing the setting from the menu. The clip is color labeled in a label option. Right-clicking a clip also gives one an opportunity to rename a clip, create a poster frame for a clip, which is the frame that will be displayed while the clip thumbnail displays in the project pane, or create a proxy clip, a lower quality version of a clip for editing purposes. Proxies are created to speed up rendering or slower computers on slower computers as a clip is being edited. All right, so what they're saying here is, pull this to the side, we can kind of look at this in practice. And I know this is part of the test also. Is it over here? Oh, all right, so our clips are over here. So if we right click them, as they're saying, we can change the label color. So that's all that is. So that changes the little color over here. You can also set a poster frame, which would be basically, if you expand this, oh, wrong way. So right now that is the poster frame. Right down here, that image is staying the same. But if I right click that and say set poster frame, hopefully I'm right. Now it makes this frame our poster frame. All right, so it's kind of, a thumbnail that represents what's happening in that clip. So that's our poster frame. All right, and I could reset that to whatever I wanted to, or create a proxy. So as we bring in our MOV files, this could be something else we could do to possibly avoid some of the glitching that's happening. So if I went, or this one, we can right click it and say create proxy, which is in here somewhere. There we go, proxy, create proxy. So it's basically doing a pre-render of it. It gives you our settings there. And now it's opening media encoder for me, and it's going to kind of pre-process that. All right, so those are some of our modify clip settings. Speed and duration. All right, that's actually, and so yeah, when I do that proxy, now it's processing that through here, the media encoder by itself. So I think, Megan, you were talking about speed and duration before. So we can come, if we wanted this clip to be faster, we could right click this and say speed and duration, and you get a pop-up. If I increase the speed, it's going to make the video go faster. What's that going to do to the duration if I speed it up? Is it going to make that clip longer or shorter? The higher, that's saying the same thing, the faster it goes. I'm saying what happens to the duration, the length of the clip? It shortens, right? Good. All right, so that's something to think about there. We can also reverse it. Oh, this should be interesting. If I speed up Austin's interview and reverse it, let's see how that sounds. Now he sounds possessed, right? Would you typically want to reverse something with audio in it or dialogue? Probably not for that reason, right? But maybe you could do that, you know, if it was a video of something. Or you wanted to create a boomerang, right? You guys know like the boomerang videos, like where it goes backwards and forward? So that would be a way in here that you could create that. You would have one clip going forward and then one clip coming backwards. That would have been a cool little project to do also, just do like a little boomerang. So that's speed and duration, or direction. What else do they talk about here? Time remapping and frame hold freezing. All right, so the time remapping option speeds up, slows down, or freezes a portion of a clip. Time remapping options are found through the right click, the effect icon on the clip. Keyframes and FX badges need to be showing to use time remapping. So I don't really do too much. So this is the effects. You can get it into the time remapping in here, but I don't really get into that too much. Don't really know a good example to give you of that. But what you might want to do is at some point do like a screenshot. So in your program window, you have a little camera icon here. All right, if you press that, it's going to export that frame as a picture, and you can see there's multiple file formats you can use there. All right, so, and then there's an option here that you can import it right into the project, or you can just browse and tell it where to save it to. So that's relatively useful as far as doing like a screenshot or just say a frame hold. All right, come on, move on to the next page. Adjusting audio of a video, we did talk about that also. If the gain is too high or too low, right? Good practice to make sure all the audio tracks adjust one at a time. So we have our audio level or our audio panel, and then we can adjust our levels within there. So we go up to audio. And we have all our presets over here for doing things and adjusting. All right, next page is, we did time remapping. What did I skip over one? Auto correction methods, color space. All right, we talked about this, the Lumetri color panel with basic color and all that type of stuff. So I'm not even going to talk about that. We've done that. Audio and video effects. There are a few audio effects that are used to hide a bad cut. Some of these are accessed on the project panel. Keep in mind these transition effects could cover an existing. So they're talking about here doing the L and the J cuts. So really just going over that. Adjustment layers. All right, here's one that is pretty useful. I don't know if we talked about this too specifically. This is on the test though, so please pay attention to this part here. So if we have like a file like this where we have a bunch of layers, we have titles, maybe I come into here with our lower third, maybe there's multiple layers of video on there. We want to apply like a filter basically over all of it. So what you can do is over in your project panel, you do new item, and then we do adjustment layer. All right. So, and then we would drag it to our timeline to cover over all this stuff. All right, works very similar to what if you've ever done an adjustment layer in Photoshop. All right, so now I'll go to my effects, and let's see. I think there was one that like black and white. I think is pretty noticeable. See if I can search for that in here, because I don't remember which folder it's in. Or is it B and W? I think it may be. I gotta find it. You know, I'll just do, so video effects, it's got to be in here somewhere. Adjust, channel. All right, let's just do brightness and contrast. All right, if I drag this onto this layer, and then if I start adjusting this, it's going to do it to everything underneath there. So all layers underneath that adjustment layer would be controlled by that. All right, and then I can just simply turn that off, and basically all my layers would kind of go back to the same. All right, so again, all you do for that is in your project panel, or if we go to editing, we would right click, do new item, and then adjustment layer. You drag that over, and then apply your effect to that layer. So those are pretty useful if you're doing a lot of like compositing and you have a lot of layers happening and you want to make changes to all them. We talked about video effects. I don't really need to discuss this too much. That's kind of the same thing with what we just did in finding those effects. Video motion effects are set in the timeline or the effects control panel. When an effect is created in another program and imported to the project, it can be added to the timeline. What are they talking about here? Effect controls. All right, so that's like what we did when we animated our logo, right? We had our keyframes. So that's what they're talking about, video motion effects. So we talked about, like with our logo, we brought it in and then we keyframed the size of it. So if I went even to this text here, right, and we said if we wanted to make that, we would turn on our stopwatch, and we can then, you know, adjust our size of it, and then we should see that title's not changing. It should be. Maybe text can't be edited like that. All right, where are we here? Video motion effects. Keying, masking, color mats, we talked about that. So they have all these little activities that we have done. Picture in picture would just basically, right, be creating another layer, scaling it down, adding audio to a sequence, we've talked about that, adjusting audio. All right, and now we're on, so that's basically all of lesson 3. Right, is that what we were, or 4? What are we talking about here? All right, so yes, so that's all of lessons 1 through 4. And now we can talk today about lesson domain 4. Isn't that what I gave you guys today? Or no, lesson 4. I don't know why the screen changes. Like, it seems like I log in one time and it looks one way, and then do you guys ever see that the appearance kind of changes when you log in? Like the menu looks different. It's kind of odd, I don't know, and then things don't quite line up. Alright, so this is what we're working on today, right? Kind of maybe termed in a different way. So we'll come back to this one. Now, this first page here, I was kind of looking over. Did you guys, I saw some of you working on this. Did you open up this exercise file? Or did they talk about it in the video? Maggie, were you, I saw you working on this. How did you answer these questions? So maybe, I thought that was part of the last lesson there. Or no, we were still working. All right, so we didn't. What was, so you were, what was your, or what did I give you guys today? I said modifying, so preparing video and publishing. Yeah, so that's technically, actually, this is lesson 1 on domain 5. But you're probably not seeing it this way. Alright, so that's what I just is, which would be the next one here. It says you can select multiple clips and nest them into a single sequence and then the effects to the sequence as a whole. So that's kind of like that same concept almost as the adjustment layer when we're talking about a nested sequence. So if we say we want to take, you know, all this stuff here and kind of group it, we can right click it and say nest, and now it kind of flattened it almost into one layer, and then when you apply effects it'll go into apply to everything in there. So similar to that concept of the adjustment layer. I'm sure there's some differences, but I think overall that's something that you can remember for that. Number 5, audio may be mono, which means single channel, so it would be left or right. All right, or stereo, which means it's multiple channels, left and right. So that's just a term of that. So if you ever hear, and we use those probably in a lot of contexts. So if you ever hear that, now you know. And if your sound is only coming out of one headphone, mono means one, right? Stereo would be both. And then the last one, if you click on a keyframe and press the delete key, the keyframe is gone. So we can come up into here, and looking at this example we had from before, I thought I had some keyframes in there. So I could scale, I could turn on a keyframe, or I could select it and press delete. I can do that. Alright, so those should be all the lessons that we did this week. Hopefully there is some useful information in there to explain things. I kind of gave you that work so that you could learn it on your own, and then we could also get production done. I know some of you probably worked better and just maybe didn't have the attention span to watch the videos, so I did want to kind of support some of the learning that was there also by talking about it and giving you what I think is the most important information on there and what's most relative to us. But now you have the answers also, and we can, you know, be closer to our test prep on that. And because as you can see, there's only one more module here to do, which is publishing, and there's only one lesson on that. So we can knock that out pretty quickly next week, and then you know, we'll do some post tests and then prepare for the actual certification test. Does anybody need any repeated from any of the lessons that we had completed? I know we went through a lot of them, and that was probably almost as painful for me as it was for you talking. I don't